Hello, hello. Hola, everybody. How are you? It's Fabi over here, and I am beyond excited to have you guys here, being a part of this incredible breakthrough brand challenge. I hope that so far you guys are having fun. I know it's interesting and kind of like this whole, I don't know, like I always find challenges to be such an interesting way of doing things. I find that they're so powerful and that they can help us so much with really getting clear on who we are, what we're all about, what we're doing specifically with this challenge. That's my intention, at least, helping you have as much clarity as possible. And it really starts with us uncovering what our superpower is. And obviously, like I said in that video, uncovering our superpower is just like one little part of defining who we are. But really, the whole point of this exercise and of you taking the quiz and of you kind of doing all this sort of stuff to define, okay, what is it that really defines me, is for you to start looking at what are the things that make you different. What are the things that are those things that when people look at you, they say, oh, this is what Marlise is doing different. This is what Adam is doing different. This is what Darlene and Esperanza are doing different. Like, this is what makes them who they are. Because like I said in that video, we live in a world where it's full of, like, it is excessively oversaturated, right? There are so many people doing the same thing or a variation of what we're doing. And we need to find a way to actively, proactively stand out, to find a way to have our own voice so that when people look at us, they're like, this is the person that I want to work with. It's funny because yesterday I had somebody who is a friend of mine message me saying, Fabi, I want to join your challenge, and is it okay if I join, because she also does branding. She was like, is it okay? Is it fine? Are you okay with it? Is it a problem if I join? And I kind of laughed it off because, for me, I don't care about competition. I don't even believe in that in the traditional way, because for me, people are going to resonate with me, or they're going to resonate with her, or they're going to resonate with whomever. It's really not something that concerns me, because it really comes back to what we're talking about today, what my superpower is, what it is that makes me different. So having somebody in the group who is also doing branding, why would it bother me at all? Like, there's no reason for it to even remotely bother me, because I am who I am, and people are going to resonate with those things that make me different. So my point with this kind of little story is that what I want you guys to understand is, what is it that you do? What is it that makes you unique? And how can you make people resonate with you? Because it really comes back down to uncovering what your own brand voice is really all about, right? I mean, like I was saying, there's so much oversaturation, so many people in the market. There's like, I could bet that even in this block, there's a whole bunch of people that are doing branding or something similar. Obviously, as you guys have kind of already noticed by now, what I do isn't only about branding, but there's so many people doing the same thing that it really is fundamental for you to be able to find your voice and what it is that makes you different and what it is that makes you unique. Like, if you don't figure this out, this is what's causing you guys to have problems with your marketing strategy right now. Now, I see this happening so often, right? Like, people buying programs that are super expensive and super high end and great and wonderful with this coach who has these people having like these massive results. And then you're going in, they're like, yes, I'm in it. I'm excited. My mindset is on point. And you're putting out all the work. You're doing a webinar, you're doing Pinterest, you're doing a video series, you're doing whatever it is that you're creating, because this strategy, like this, like magic pill strategy, it's like almost like you're signing up for a magic wand. Oh my God, it's so wonderful. You're doing everything, and then everything just suddenly falls flat. And does that sound familiar, by the way? Is that something that has ever happened to you? Let me know in the comments. It definitely has happened to me, especially in the beginning when I was still trying to figure out my voice. So the reason why that happens is that you're really failing to differentiate yourself. You're so focused on feeling or following this almost like swipe file, like this copy paste strategy, doing all these things, following all these steps that are supposed to be this way, that are supposed to be the right way, that when you plug yourself into it, you get lost. Like you get lost in a sea of vanilla, of all these things that are exactly the same, not different from what anybody else is saying. And it really makes you kind of blend in. You're getting lost in the sea of so many people doing the same thing. And you're like, what the heck? Like, isn't this strategy supposed to be the best strategy in the world? Why am I not getting results? Why is this not working for me? And I can bet that the main reason why some of those strategies are not working for you, there's a lot of little things going on here and there, but it really goes back to branding. And when I talk about branding, I mean it in from what you guys saw from a brand strategy pyramid perspective. And specifically when you have a strategy, a marketing strategy that's not working, it's about you not making a clear differentiation or making it clear who you are, what makes you different, what your personality is all about. Like, why should people resonate with you above everybody else? You're not clear on who your audience is, and we'll talk about audience in day 2 of the challenge. You're not clear about how to position yourself, and we'll talk about positioning on the 3rd day of the challenge. So you're really not standing out from anybody else. You're kind of blending in. And it really tends to be a branding problem. It tends to be a messaging problem. It tends to be a problem of you not finding or not really knowing how to define what it is that makes you unique, which is a huge problem. And the thing is that a lot of people struggle with this because they think, well, I know what makes me different, but like, I don't know how to express it. Or they think, well, there's nothing weird about me. I'm normal. You know, sometimes we hear these like stories, like, I don't know, like these incredible stories of like, I was homeless for a year and then this happened and that happened. And you're like, well, I've just been me and there's nothing different about me. Like, how can I use that? So that's another way of looking at it. Another one is, you know, you're like, well, literally, you just don't know how to differentiate yourself. You don't know how to find your voice. And obviously uncovering what your brand superpower and uncovering what your brand archetype is, it kind of helps you in giving you direction of like, okay, I can use this. So let's say Marlise, who is in branding, let's say that her brand superpower is being a connector, and then there's somebody else who is also in branding and her brand superpower is a challenger. What you want to do is use that in your messaging. So I'll give you an example of that. I've had a lot of clients who are in the health and fitness industry in one way or another, right? It's not the only type of client that I have, obviously, but I've had a few. And so I had a client, for example, whose brand was Badass Girl Boss. So it was a challenger, all about like diets suck. And like, that was what her messaging was all about, right? It was all around being very frontal and confrontational and saying like everything that you've been told is a lie and it's not about calories, it's about this or about that. So that was what her whole messaging was about. And then I have another client who is an intuitive weight loss coach. So both of them are doing weight loss. One of them is into like mindset and fitness and nutrition. And the other one is all about mindset basically. And her communication is more about like, it's time to have freedom and it's time to do this. So it's a little bit more of a curator of sharing great content, all these things. So these are two people who are in the same industry and they're using their superpower to differentiate the way that they're communicating, where one is a challenger, frontal, direct, and going straight to the point, and the other one is softer and being like, okay, these are the things, the resources, the stuff that you can use in order to learn how to do this for yourself, or how to do this, or how to improve, how to lose weight, right? So those are kind of some of the things that you can think of or things that you can use, but really it comes down to what makes you different. Like, you need to look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, what makes me different? And look at how you've been branding and marketing yourself and communicating. And again, when I say branding, I'm not only talking about design. In fact, in the next 4 days, when we talk about branding, we're not going to be talking about design. There's a lot of stuff that we can do with design. I am a designer. I help clients with their brand identity and what that looks like, but that's not the only thing that matters here. What matters more than anything is first how you're branding in terms of communication, right? Like, how are you communicating yourself? And what I want you to think about is look at your branding right now, look at your messaging, look at the way that you're coming out and think, okay, is this something that when people look at it, they can think, okay, this is somebody that's different. This is unique. And if they're comparing you, they're comparing Janelle to Vivian, which you guys do something different. I know what you guys both do, but it doesn't matter for the, for this example. I'm comparing Janelle to Vivian, and I'm saying, okay, I'm going to hire a coach that's doing leadership, that's business or whatever. Is what Vivian's doing different than what Janelle is doing? And like, what do I resonate with most as a consumer? Who am I going to resonate with most? So with Marlise, for example, she says she also does branding. If Darlene is looking for somebody to do her branding, she can look at Marlise and she could look at Fabi's and she could say, okay, this is what Marlise is doing. And this is what stands out, and I resonate with this thing that she's saying, or I'm going to resonate with Fabi. But if what you're doing is something that is kind of like, what are you about? What's your message? Who are you? What makes you, like, if I don't get that notion, I'm immediately going to go either with the person that's cheapest, right? Because, I might as well, if I'm going to choose between these two people and there's one that's cheaper than the other and there's nothing different in this person. Or I'm going to go with the person that is like 10 times more expensive because they've done a really good job at differentiating themselves. Not because necessarily they're better at what you do, but because they've done a good job at standing out so that person, that consumer, that buyer, that audience, whatever you want to call it, is going to resonate more with that person. So what I want you to do is look at the way that you're communicating yourself. Are you doing a good job at differentiating yourself, or are you doing okay job at it? A couple of days ago, I was listening to a webinar that one of my clients sent me. So when I work with my clients, we do everything from their messaging to their branding, like brand identity, to their marketing strategy. And this client in particular was doing a webinar. So this is somebody who is amazing. She is super funky and sassy and fun. And the content that what we did for her webinar was amazing. The copywriting, like, it is such a good, like, really great content. So she sends me the recording of the webinar and I watched it and I was like, this isn't her. Like, it just felt like it was blah. It felt bland. It felt, it just didn't feel like she was coming across. So I tried to politely send her back a message saying, Cindy, I'm sorry. The content is great. We did a great job with the script of the webinar, but there's nothing fun or interesting about listening to this when I know that you are such a fun and interesting person. So you need to re-record it again and do it as many times as you need to do it until it sounds like you. So she came back saying, Fabi, thank you, because you just saved me a whole bunch of thousands of dollars on ads because I was going to put it out, and you're right. And the point of this is that sometimes we could have amazing content. Like, it could be great. Cindy's script for that webinar was really, really powerful. Everything that we created for her brand, from her website to her messaging to her program, everything that we've built is great. But her brand voice was getting lost within her webinar, within her marketing strategy. So if you're having problems like that happen, sometimes it comes back to, okay, how do I bring myself out even more? How do I get people to see me behind all of this thing that I'm how do I get people to connect with me? How do I get people to connect with my energy? That is really, really fundamental. And I promise you that if you fail at this, if you don't do a good job at actively differentiating yourself, at getting people to look at you, and ideally you want this to happen on everywhere, right? Meaning how you are visually and you're verbally communicating who you are, right? So that when people look at your brand, they immediately are like, that's Fabi, that's Adam, that's David, whoever, right? Like, they see it and they get it. But also when they hear you or listen to you or read you, like when they get in touch with your brand, you want people to feel like, wow, I really want to work with Janelle because look at her, look at what she's doing, look how different, look at Spunky, look at this or that. Like, you want people to really connect with who you are. This is really fundamental for you to be able to build success in whichever marketing strategy that you're using. And the thing is that for some reason, sometimes we have a really hard time in defining what those things are. Like, I have a friend that says, you can't look at the color of your own eyes. I mean, unless you have a mirror, but sometimes you don't have a mirror. So you can't see your eyes. Like, sometimes we're so close to our businesses and so close to ourselves that we have a really, really hard time with defining, okay, who am I? What makes me different? Like, how do I actually communicate my differences? How do I actually communicate my uniqueness? How do I get people to see what I know? Because sometimes we're like, I'm really good at this. And there's a lot of imposter syndrome, but let's say that in the bottom, behind the imposter syndrome, you're like, well, actually, I am really good. Like, I believe that I'm good. So you're good, but you're like, how do I get people to understand that I'm good? Like, how do I get people to see that they need to work with me? And sometimes it's like, oh, I just wish that people could just get it. Like, it's this thing. Does that resonate with you guys? Like, with this feeling of like, I just want people to look at it and to understand that I can save their lives, or I can help them, or I can change their lives, or whatever it is that you do, right? And we really need to get good at going back to basics and communicating what makes me different, what makes me unique. So it starts with a superpower. And I just kind of gave you guys an example. If you're watching at the replay, or you're watching it at the end, or whatever, go back and watch the video from the beginning. I gave you an example with, and actually, you know what, I can actually, no, I was going to share it here, but never mind, I can't. You know, you can go back and connect to, okay, what my superpower is. I'm a connector. I am a curator. I am a challenger. Like, whatever your superpower is, how can you use that in the way that you're communicating? Because if you're, somebody was mentioning like they're really good at one-on-one conversations. So if you're really good at conversations, maybe what you need to do is start doing more videos, or doing live, like interviews with your clients on your Facebook group or whatever. Like, start doing more things that allow you to use your superpower in a way that makes you stand out and makes your audience connect back to you even more. So really, that's what it's all about. You using that, like I said, that's one thing that you could use. There's a ton of things, and really getting down to the core of what your brand story is and what your uniqueness is fundamental for you to have results in everything that you're doing. So hopefully that makes sense. I can't wait to spend the rest of the day looking at your messages and seeing what your brand superpower is, and kind of hoping that this kind of planted a little seed in your brain where you're starting to think about, okay, how do I define what makes me different? How do I get people to like, and even start by asking yourself that question, looking at your content, looking at your websites, at your brands, at your communication, at your marketing strategy, at your social media posts, everything that you're doing, and asking yourself, is this doing a good job of differentiating me? Is this doing a good job of getting people to look at it and say, oh, I definitely need to work with Helen because she's clearly the person for me? Because that's what you want people to answer first. Like, I want to work with like, you want them to look at you and say, damn it, I need to work with Helen. I need to work with Michelle. I need to work with Janelle. I need to do, like, that's what you want them to think the moment that they encounter your brand. Really, when we're talking about branding in general, and we're talking about business, I would say, it really is all about creating an experience for your audience. Like, that is what it's all about. Us creating, like, doing a really good job of creating an experience, of getting people to connect with who you are so that they can see that you could have them have results. And we'll talk about that in more detail later. But again, for now, what I want you to do is kind of audit your brand. Like, look at everything that you have right now. Look at your branding visually, verbally, how you're communicating, how you're showing up, the videos that you're doing, the content that you're creating, and saying, okay, is this really something that represents me? Is this something that really is showing who I am? And if I'm not, how do I fix it? Like, what is it that I need to do right now to make sure that people, the moment that they encounter me, they're like, wow, this is the person that I resonate with the most. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I want you to do. So think about your brand superpower, of how you could bring that in. But also beyond that, it's about connecting with who you are, what makes you different, and how you can use your differences to attract more people into your business. So that's it. I will see you guys tomorrow anyways. Ciao.